Hey, everybody, this is David Paul, the host of the Capital Stack podcast, with a slight bit of bronchitis. Forgive my voice. Today, I am interviewing the founder and CEO of PetDesk, which is a vertical SaaS company located in San Diego, California, that provides products for veterinarians and their pet parents. Taylor has scaled the company to now approaching 20 million of ARR with a headcount of 95. The company is post Series D within its capital stack. Taylor, how you doing?
I am doing great. Also got a little bit of a voice thing going on here.
Yeah, we'll sound like the Muppet Babies.
I like it. I like
Like a week ago, I sounded like Elmo. My kids really liked me.
it.
Before we really dive into like the nitty gritty, like let's talk about what's really important. And did you see the latest Batman?
I have not. No, I have not seen the latest, but I didn't actually even know it was out until yesterday with one of my buddies. That's
Okay.
how out of touch I am.
What are your thoughts on it? I mean, do you have any?
No, I literally he just said that there's a new Batman, and I haven't even looked yet. So I have no idea.
Because you're more of a Star Wars guy.
I am less comic books. I'm more Star Wars, Star Trek, science fiction, fantasy, all of that kind of stuff.
Mhm. And gamer.
And hardcore gamer. That's right.
Right. And what are you playing right now?
Elden Ring. Oh my gosh. I think it's, for me at least, it's as transformative as Final Fantasy VII was, way back in the day.
Oh
Um,
man, Final Fantasy VII was the next level.
yeah, I mean, in college, my buddy would sit and watch me play Final Fantasy VII because it was just that good to just sit and watch.
It was a
And
story.
yeah, and Elden Ring, like, it's less about the story, but the yeah, I don't know exactly what it is, but they did something really special. It might be I'm it's for sure one of the best games of all time. Like, it may be the best game of all time.
How many hours can you put on during a week of Elden Ring?
Two.
Okay, that's
I
pretty
mean,
good
like,
though.
yeah. No, I'm getting some time in. I've got some buddies who've already finished it, and I'm way behind. But I think that's why I like the game as well. Is I can jump in for a little bit, have fun, and it's this evolving story, that still works if I get super busy and don't play for 5 days, and I can come back to it.
Yeah,
It's really good.
it's a nice escape.
Yeah.
So tell me, Taylor, for the audience, tell us kind of the origin story about you and kind of, how you grew up. I know you were a shy town kid and kind of what got you into the kind of entrepreneurial groove.
Yeah. So, yeah, I grew up in Chicago, in the suburbs, Des Plaines, right next to O'Hare. Um, and I fell in love with physics in high school. I saw a double rainbow. I was working at a, River Trails Tennis Center. I saw a double rainbow, and it was right when I learned how rainbows work from a physics standpoint. And I was kind of a know-it-all, and I was like, "Oh, this is it. Like, I can actually explain everything in the universe if I learn physics. I can be the ultimate know-it-all." I was like, "This is what I'm doing."
Yeah.
Um, and so ended up doing physics, in undergrad, and then went to grad school because I graduated in 2002 and there was zero jobs. So went to grad school to do more physics.
How does a double rainbow work, like high level?
So basically, the way that a rainbow works, the sun is behind you, the rain is in front of you. The sun, rain is like a sphere, right? The water is
Right.
like a sphere. The light goes into that sphere, bounces off the back, and then gets broken apart, right? And then bounces back and hits your eye. And that's how you see the rainbow. So you see a rainbow across all of the water droplets.
Uh-huh.
Well, what happens is, in that sphere, right, it bounces once, comes out, but then some of it bounces in the front of the sphere back again to the back of the sphere and then out again. And so that's what then the double rainbow. And that's why the double rainbow is, when you see it, it's always like less bright than
Hmm.
the first rainbow. And an interesting thing, it's also flipped. So you got Roy G. Biv, right? Red, orange,
Right.
yellow. Well, the double rainbow goes the opposite direction because it's now bounced twice and is flipped. Um,
Fascinating.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So pulling it back to video games, there's a double rainbow in Rocket League, and some nerds got really pissed because it wasn't flipped, and so the Rocket League designers had to go in and flip the rainbow. They're like, okay, we got it. The physics is right now.
Okay, good.
So anyway, I don't know if we're ever going to get to business at this rate, but
No, this is great.
the so yeah, so hardcore physics and doing all of that. I ended up at a nanotechnology firm, and I had the choice of like go get my PhD after my master's, go get my PhD in physics, or get into business. And was working for the summer at this nanotechnology firm, and I was like, me in the lab and doing the political side of research and science probably doesn't work. I should probably be doing something together, business and technical. And so started from the ground at that company, ended up running the company. Uh, After this is like 6 years later, we built it up, we spun off a division, sold it to another company in a cashless merger, and was running that new division, and realized like I really wanted to go build something myself.
What'd the
Um,
company do?
we made like, so there's scanning electron microscopes. They basically use electrons, so you can go see uh, anything that's really really small. We were focused on transistors, so that's what your computer chips are made of, right? And
Mhm.
they had finally broken the sort of nanometer, nanotechnology, which is like less than 100 nanometers in size. So we made little robots that were automated, or you could manually drive them, that would land tungsten probes that had like a 50 nanometer probe radius at the end, and land them on the transistors in the actual like circuits of the chips that Intel makes,
Oh,
AMD,
wow.
all of those guys. And basically they couldn't test the chips anymore because they had gotten so small, and so our tool helped them test it. So when they would have, you know I remember one of them, when they came out with the 45 nanometer node technology, they were at like 20% yield, right? If you're running a fab and it's at 20% yield, then you're throwing away like $10 million a day of just bad devices. And so you got to quickly get that up to like 50, 60, 70% yield.
Gotcha.
um, so 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 that's what we were doing, and there was a lot of other like science and cool stuff that was going on. The company was called Zybex um, Materials, and a whole bunch of other things. um, and and so my best friend Ken was computer engineer there, and we had turned 30, and we're like, man, we want to go do some stuff. We had a whole bunch of different ideas. My other best friend and roommate, Aaron, was a back-end web developer, and we picked one idea, which was a better Foursquare. One of the dumbest ideas. So the super smart idea for us to leave and go build our own thing. Super bad idea to say, hey, we're going to go make an unfunded competitor to Foursquare at the time.
Right.
So we Dennis Crowley had launched, had raised $40 million. His offices were literally next to the Mashable offices,
Mhm.
and we launched in 2011 at South by Southwest. He had a Pepsi partnership, an entire block, and we had a 10 by 10 booth next to a bell ringer that basically gave everybody ear damage. Like no one would come to our booth. Uh, and so we failed like day one. But being the confident, first time entrepreneurs, it took us 9 months, a year to figure out that we were really failing. Um, and then, so long story short, that was a super crazy roller coaster ride. And uh, two things happened. One, my wife's uncle's retired veterinarian. From day one, he was like, "Dude, this is awesome. You gotta do this, but for veterinarians, they really need your tools. They're really far behind." You know, Being the arrogant first time CEO, I did not listen to the retired veterinarian, but I should have. He's one of the wisest people I know. Um, but then finally, when I was Googling how do you shut down a business. We've totally failed. And I looked down, and Molly, uh, my my wife and I's dog, who was her dog first, she was missing an eyebrow and her paws were all chewed up. And I
Mhm.
realized I'm a horrible pet parent. I have the technology to solve this. There's probably others out there. Like, let's actually talk to Doc and let's figure this out. And that's how he ended up, making apps for dogs and software for veterinarians. And it's been an awesome ride from there. So
Okay. So you guys decided you wanted to build in Foursquare. That was kind of like a check-in feature, right? Like if I remember it correctly, you would check in
yeah,
to certain. You became like the king of that particular location, whether it be a gym or a restaurant, and that's essentially was the whole.
yeah. And so so our brilliant idea was, well, who wants to just check in? You need to actually engage. Like, the reason that you go to places is to engage with other people. So there needs to be more engagement. People need to like talk to each other at a place. Um, it's a great idea if you didn't know how humans worked, right?
Mhm.
Like, if you just
Right.
ignored the how what humans actually need. Um, and and so this more engaging discussion type of thing at locations, ended up failing. What we did have though was technology. We kind of early pivoted to, we realized, oh, there is something here where you can have sort of an app within an app. So you can have an app that has all of your local places in it, and you want to engage with those places. Maybe you don't want to engage with other people at those places, right? Like, that didn't make sense. But you wanted to engage with those places. And so we learned a ton there about consumers and how they think, and about apps and about local businesses. And that's what we were able to take. And then, Ken, this is 100% to Ken's credit. At one point, I wanted to do it for all service providers, like
Mhm.
haircuts, auto, like everything. And he was like, dude, no, you gotta like, we've got to focus down. um and I was like, no, this is, I kind of did like a Steve Jobs thing where, like, I know better than, like, than the
Everybody.
consumers. And yeah,
Right.
you can always fall into that trap of like, oh, well, we would just create faster horses if talk to the people riding horses. And sometimes that's true. And sometimes you're just being a, a dumb entrepreneur. And I was being a dumb entrepreneur. He finally got through to me and was like, we need to focus down to just one thing. Let's do pet. Like, this is super exciting. And definitely they're right. And 9 months into the development of it, we even focused down further from all of pet care down to just veterinarians, right? And
Mhm.
that's what really unlocked the ability to go build something awesome and, best in breed and be successful.
So tell me about your customer discovery on kind of understanding like what the opportunity was and where the gaps were that your product could solve problems.
Yeah, so we were a little bit more hesitant, obviously. So we were like, okay, we've already screwed up, once with our own thing. And then actually in this time frame to like keep the lights on, we like helped somebody else start their own thing, and we kind of didn't make it there. And so we said, all right, we need to really do some smart market research and everything else. So I went to one of the trade shows, WVC in Vegas, talked to a lot of people, tried to understand, you know, the technology landscape, all the competitors, what are they doing, um, and what's the data needs that we're going to have, and everything else. And then we did, and I, we did this for free back then because SurveyMonkey, had this like free version. I don't think they have that anymore, but we took out ads on Facebook and LinkedIn, and basically just like ran surveys, and we targeted vets, groomers, boarders, and then pet parents, so we could see both sides. Um, and and the market research was, we already knew, had a pretty good idea of what you would do with an app. Like, you would request appointments and you would track your health data stuff, and and whatever. But we really wanted to understand what's the biggest pain point. And so we did these surveys. We got 300 vets, practice managers, vet techs, I think about 600 groomers and boarders, and then maybe like 400 consumers. And it was, you know, we had them ranked sort of the different things, features and things, problems that we saw. And I mean, it was like signal to noise ratio. One was way, way bigger, and that was requesting appointments. Like
Hmm.
it became qualitatively, we kind of already knew this, but it was great to see that super big signal in the quantitative that like, yes, it's 9:30 at night when you remember to call your veterinarian, but nobody uses voicemail anymore, right? And then during the day they call you and you're at work,
Right.
and so figuring out an asynchronous way to request and set up appointments, this is what we were going to focus on. And so we had built the platform before this Foursquare clone thing, with a billion features. We knew now, like, okay, one feature, it's to request appointments. Like, we're just going to do this and we're just going to be amazing at it. And that's where we started.
Did you think about like, how is this going to evolve into a company? Did you think about like, is this going to be just a feature versus a platform? How did you like, wrap your head around that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Had definitely learned through some of the other things that like you've got to build a product and not a feature. And so we were um very, very, very thoughtful in thinking through, can this be more, right? What is the vision and product roadmap of this larger product that we're going to offer? Um, but at the same time, uh, you know, one of the traps that you can fall into, especially if you're a product minded folks, and both Ken and I are very product minded, is just building too much product, right? And
Hmm.
so we checked the box that like, yes, we can build into all this other wallet share of veterinarians. We also have groomers, and in the beginning we have groomers and boarders, and so you had this large enough market where even if you're just an app that requests appointments, you can make enough money, um, and you can partner up with all of these other folks that do email reminder systems and websites and marketing and everything else. But this is a key point here. I think that it is a really good learning experience, and when things get stressful, you tend to control the controllables, right? You kind of heard this control the controllables type of thing. But when you're a founder, you need to understand what your safe space is, because if you're an engineer founder, if you're a CTO, your safe space is probably coding, right? And for Ken,
Hmm.
that was definitely what it is. For me, I'm not like a sales or marketing person. I'm more of a product person. So my safe space is like designing the product and figuring out how it can better work and UX and things like that. If you're sales or marketing, that's going to be your safe space. So when times get tough, you're going to like fall into doing those things. But sometimes that is not the right thing to do, right?
Hmm.
So in the early days, this is how we ended up over engineering a lot of things, because we'd freak out, oh, it's not working. And so I would just start doing product stuff and Ken would just start doing engineering. And when we really should have been talking to more customers or selling or, doing these other things that are outside of our comfort zone, but are the things that we should be focused on as,
Hmm.
as a company. Um, so
Yeah. So how do you define product market fit, and how has that evolved over time?
yeah, so I think that there's multiple stages of product market fit, at least how I've looked at it and how it kind of worked for us. Um, so I think that uh, there's a product that you can sell as the CEO to um, folks that are already on the other side of the chasm, right? They
Right.
like, it's. there's always some folks who have already crossed the chasm before you've even started building, and they like new stuff. They love buying from like a CEO, like this is, this new company. Okay, I'm on the cutting edge. Um, but even then, there's some threshold of like it needs to make sense. You need to be solving a pain point. Um, and so this is most founders in the early days, I think, inherently understand this, and they can usually get to this point, where they can make the first 5, 10, 50, 100, whatever, depending on how transactional your sale is or not, those first few customers. But then you need to be able to graduate to a point where you can bring in a director of sales or a really good salesperson, and that person can sell it, not as the CEO and founder, right? So there's
Hmm.
no like extra halo of, oh, I'm buying from the founder, or this is like cool. It's like, no, now it's really matching their needs. And so a really talented salesperson can sell it to somebody who's maybe already thinking about crossing the chasm, right? But
Hmm.
but still very much a forward thinker about technology in that space. And then the final real stage before, I mean, Ken and I remember we had like over 100 customers, maybe over 200 customers, when I was like, okay, there's no going back now. Like we're in it. And that's when, that director of sales, or if it's a really good salesperson, like maybe you hire some SDRs and other AEs, whatever it might be, that now like a regular salesperson can go talk to a customer that is not really near the chasm, and can convince them to buy this technology product. That's when you know that's like the ultimate product market fit. It's like now you've really got it. And 5 to 10 people can go sell this thing, uh, without them being, this like world class salesperson, right? Because so we had Drew early on, and he was just awesome bulldog salesperson. Um, and I made the mistake of thinking like, oh, okay, we've got product market fit. Like Drew can sell 8 of these a day. This is awesome. But then we brought in a bunch of salespeople and they couldn't sell. And okay, we haven't completely gotten there yet. We need a little bit more, right?
And so your heuristics around the development of, or the range of product market fit, or the heuristics, are those who the ability to sell the product, not so much as the market adoption, or is that part of the equation?
Yeah, and I think this is where it's interesting because you get a different answer from every single person, right?
Right.
And I think what colors my perspective on this is that we took such a sales approach to everything. Like we only just started doing marketing in the last couple of years in any real way, right? And so everything I looked, whenever I was thinking about anything, it was always, can Drew sell it, or can the salespeople sell it? It was always from this sort of, that was the test for me, if we were doing something right or wrong, right? So I
Mhm.
think that's where that comes from.
Gotcha. Okay, so you're going into it. How did you like so you had some initial customer discovery with your with your surveys. You went to a conference, and I remember that you went up to some of the old legacy players. You started asking them some questions. And what was the after kind of thought of the information that you took from those competitors, or your soon to be competitors?
Yeah, so in that first conference, I mean, it was pretty obvious. So we had been looking at the dental space. I had talked to some people who were also in the dental space, and one thing jumped out at me more than anything else, and that was text messaging adoption. So in the vet space, it was like 6% of vet offices were sending text to remind you to show up the next day. Right. This was 2013, by the way. And in the dental office, it was 65%. When dentists are eating your lunch at tech adoption, like you're pretty low on the totem pole, right? And
Hmm.
um and like 98% of clinics were doing postcards. So it was very obvious that that was one huge takeaway. Like, okay, they're really, really behind the times. And then the other big takeaway was, all of the competitors had been acquired. So all of the like these email portal, web portal systems had been acquired by non-technology companies in the space. And then so all innovation had stopped. And so it was like, oh, this is great. We can come in and and really do a lot of damage here. Um, One thing that we did learn though was sometimes an industry is too far behind. So sometimes it's hard to
Mhm.
go from we send postcards to we put an app in our clients' hands when they haven't gone through the like, okay, send emails, all right, send text messages, like, do all these other things. We didn't realize it at the time, but looking back, like we should have thought a little bit about, okay, if you're that far behind, how do you can't just skip it all and go to the future, right? You
Mhm.
need to kind of walk them through this journey.
Okay, so you accelerated the industry a little bit too quickly, but then you added some of the features to. You did SMS and email as well as just giving the app.
We did, and this is yeah. So this was the next show that we went to. So later in 2013, we went to Southwest Vet Symposium. It was just Ken and I at this point. We were living off of ramen and off of our girlfriends, and Aaron had gotten married and had a kid on the way, so he had to actually go back during this time and go back to his old job before he then came back to us. But so it was just Ken and I, and we walked up to the IDEX booth. IDEX is $1 billion public company, and they have they have this like email portal reminder system and the practice management system. And there was a marketing manager there, and I said, "Hey, we've got an app. You know, is there somebody in business development that I can talk to?" And she said, "Do you know who we are?" And I was like, "Yeah, you guys have Cornerstone, the PIMS, and you've got Pet Health Network Pro, this email reminder system and portal, thought we could like integrate." And she said, "Yeah, exactly." And then turned around and walked away. And I realized she like was literally saying like, "Don't you know who we are? Like, how dare you
Right.
talk to us?" Um, and that was the moment. And we had struggled because this was we just had an app. And we were just like, "Hey, we're just gonna make this awesome app, and everybody's gonna love it, and we'll work with all these other folks." And I walked back to the booth, and I was like, "Ken, forget all these jokers. Like, let's just go build this." Um, and that's when we decided to focus down on vet. That's when Ken took 3 months and then built basically the entire system minus the web portal that all of our now competitors had, integrated with the practice management systems, pulled in the data, did all of that kind of stuff. Um, and and then January 1 of 2014, that's when we realized like, oh, okay, now we have product market fit. Now we can send postcards because they all want to send postcards, right? Like to your earlier point, like now we can send the email reminders, we can do the text message reminders, and we can have the app, so we can give them this full system. um, and that's when Drew came in and was able to start selling. And then we had to add a little bit more to get to the point where your random salesperson could sell. But that
Sure.
was huge, and I got to stand at the in IDEX in front of a bunch of their high level executives and tell them this story and thank them for enabling us. Because without that marketing
What'd they
manager,
say? Was she there?
no, but they were like, we think she's still here. We probably know who that was. It
Yeah.
was they took it well. Like it was a funny moment. It's a small industry. We all know each other, right? And we're all like friends and competitors and everything else. But
So that moment, was it the fact that there was just kind of like a subtle arrogance that they weren't, minding the field, that you saw that there was an opportunity there? Did it just motivate you just because, you're an underdog and you wanted to slay Goliath? What was it about that comment that really fueled you?
yeah, so I mean, I would say it's a little bit of all of the above. I was picked on a lot and when I was growing up as a weird kid. I was a really weird kid,
Yeah, but you're like
and
tall and good looking. How did that happen?
I was not tall. I was actually scrawny and short.
Really?
So yeah, I
Yeah, at
grew
least you
11
didn't.
inches between sophomore and junior year of high school.
Yeah, but at least you weren't like short, fat, and red hair. Like that was me. So.
Yeah, well, yeah, I was still picked on like that though.
Okay, you're okay. You can
Yeah,
empathize with that. Now you're
yeah.
like a really, really good looking tall guy. So.
Yeah, yeah, that came a lot later. My mom always told me, "Just wait until you're 28, and then your life's gonna turn around."
Mhm,
Um, but so I definitely I've always used the tell me I can't do something as fuel, as I think a ton of founders, right, and a ton of just people in general do. So that did get me really fired up. Um, and I think the but more than anything, I think it was the obvious like blind spot that arrogance showed, right?
mhm,
Like, okay, they all acquired companies that were built back in 2005, right? 2006, and hadn't really been innovated much, and definitely weren't being innovated more, and they didn't realize that like we could build the whole system in 3 months with the new technology. Um and so where before I was not sure if we were still on the fence, right? This was still 6 months in, and we were still on the fence on, do we really have something here or not? And that was the moment when I was like, "Oh yeah, we really have something." And then things started falling together because we realized like it was interesting. So at the time, we thought, "Hey, everybody, it's an app. Everybody knows that apps are the thing. It's 2013, right?" Um, Vet clinics are way too busy. They would for the first 3 months, they would talk about the app, and then they never talk about it again. And so we had to solve this problem of like, how do we get all their users to download the app? Well, guess what? A reminder system, sending emails, sending postcards, sending text messages that then all drive them to download an app, and we do it for them. That's what we need, right? And so
mhm,
not only was it this like, okay, we want to go attack these people, but there was some real product market fit and business reasons for us to do all the things that they were doing. And then it also became very clear that the vet clinics, they they didn't want to pay for, two, three, four different vendors. They wanted one vendor that did all of this patient engagement type of stuff. And so,
mhm.
I remember Ken and I had a long debate about doing postcards. He was like, dude, I did not leave the nanotechnology sector to build a technology company and like write to an API from some postcard company. Like, this is 1970s technology. What are you talking about? And this was, he convinced me to just focus down, right? And this is I convinced him like, no, we have to do postcards. They will not buy us unless we have postcards. So we absolutely have to do it. And he finally gave up and was like, okay, fine, we'll do it. Um, and I know that's one of the reasons why we were successful and some of our competitors that were similar to us were not successful. It's because we gave them, sometimes it might not be the solution you want to build, but if it's the thing that your customer really needs and they're not going to buy from you, then you need to build it. Right.
Mhm,
And it's tough to know, when that is the case, or when you're kind of like spinning your wheels and wasting time. But I know for sure without postcards, we would have failed 100%.
mhm. So you're at a position where you started to build out some more functionality. This is probably around the time you started to do your first round, right? Or was that before?
We did our first round in 2014, this was like a
Yeah.
small round, right? So it was like 225,000 from friends and family, most who weren't friends or family. It was very hard to raise for the pet space at the time. Um,
And why was that? Just addressable market?
Investors thought that it was a niche market. They're like, "Oh yeah, that small pet market." I think there was some leftover bad taste from Pets.com in the
Mm,
2002 implosion, um, and you know, fast forward, and all those investors are probably like, "Oh my god, I really missed." This market went from 30 billion to 120 billion, right?
right.
In 8 years. Um, and then WAG was raising at the time, so literally every when I was doing our Series Seed, so the next round we raised like about 1 million. Um, every investor I talked to, they were like, "Oh yeah, we just talked to WAG like a week ago, and we either gave them money or said no because it's the pet space." And so it was very frustrating. But I just uh, I mean, I think with the failure company, the Foursquare clone, this and everything else, I'm pretty sure I'm over 1,000 investors that I've talked to
Oh, I'm sure.
in one form or fashion. Like
Mhm.
it's been a long road. Um,
So you raised your first round, and now you're trying to figure out how to put a little bit of scale behind your sales engine. So
yep.
tell me a little bit about how you developed the talk tracks around selling your product and onboarding your team and building out your sales system and how that came into fruition.
Yeah. So this is we brought in Drew, who he had helped build Take Lessons in town in San Diego, and he had left and then was coming back to San Diego, and I got him on Angel List, kind of like before he decided what he was going to do next. And I was like, dude, you got to come, you got to come work for us. I got really lucky there, and he had enough of the director of sales. Okay, I can think about process and build structures and think about people, but also like was just a bulldog salesperson who's just going to go out and sell and get stuff done. And so that worked really well. I immediately took it off my plate, which is not always the route that you should necessarily do, I don't think. But in this case, um, you know, immediately flipped it over and was like, okay, Drew, like you go sell. Like let's just arm you and figure out. And he had found a challenger sale and sent me a blog post. We were reading about challenger sale. We read the books, and then we became obsessed with the challenger sale
And
framework.
what is that from a high level?
So it's um, they did a bunch of research, and and they basically found that salespeople, they're like 7 different archetypes, and the challenger archetype is the archetype that for complicated software type of sales is the most successful. And basically, it's a 6-step process where you go in, you prove that you know their business really well, you know their industry really well, you reframe their thinking, and so they think that they have a problem over here, but hey, you know what? That's actually a symptom of this problem, and this is a really big problem, and then you take them through like quantifying and qualitatively showing them the emotional impact of this problem, and then you show them a solution. You still haven't even talked about your product yet. And then you get them to agree, yeah, that sounds like an amazing solution to this problem that when I woke up this morning, I didn't even know I had. And then you say, oh, look at our product. It is that solution, right? So they've already agreed to buy your product before you've even talked about your product. Um, it's that reframe that's the really important part. And the number one killer to sales is urgency, and this is where challenger sale comes in, and it creates this urgency because they didn't have this problem before, and now you've shown them it's a huge financial problem, it's a huge emotional problem, and like they need to get on it, right? And so by the end of that call, they're like, oh man, I gotta go figure this out right now.
So what is the reframe for your particular client?
so in now we've kind of moved on, and we're not using challenger sale as much. We're using this like hybrid of some other things, and so I'm not going to get into that because we're literally launching a new narrative. I just had a meeting before this to talk about it. But I'll tell you what we did. So we did this challenger framework. We had about 19 people at the time. I took Friday, kind of prepped them beforehand, right? Had they all read the book? This engineers, everybody in the company, right?
Mhm.
And then we did a full day of okay, let's figure out what the reframe is, what differentiates us from everybody else, and um, long story short, what it came down to was we realized almost every problem that they had at a practice was a symptom of them not reaching their clients. And we realized that they all thought that it was the client's fault that they weren't coming in. They thought that just by sending postcards and an email, that like, oh, okay, I've reached all my clients. They all know that they're supposed to come in, and they're just lazy or bad pet parents or whatever it is, right?
Mm.
And and so the reframe was, hey, those postcards only reach 20% of your clients. And then, hey, do you read any of your emails? Oh, no, you don't. And you have this huge spam folder and this huge, promo folder and everything else. You're probably only reaching 30% of your clients, which means 70% of your clients are just sitting out there wondering what's going on. But if but so and then we'd go into like there's a financial impact to that, there's an emotional, like there's too many calls and I'm losing clients and yada yada yada. But that
Clients are
reframe,
angry, they're stressed.
yeah, that reframe was really like they had this tool that was put it on the shelf and it automated some reminders. And I don't even think they half the time they didn't even know the name of the product that they were using, right? And and so in the morning, practice was working super great, right? But by the time they talk to us, they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm not talking to my clients. I've got a huge problem. Like I need to get this figured out." And then we could show them, well, we give them an app, get them super engaged in the app, and then we send them all these messages and we'll get to 95% of your clients, right? Not 30%.
Mhm. Wow. And so how did you get to the point where you knew that that was the problem?
I mean, it was probably 8 hours of the 19 of us sitting there debating. I highly recommend reading the Challenger Sale. It takes you through how you do this process
Oh, okay.
at the
Yeah.
company and how you build it. But what's super important is figuring out, okay, what's a huge problem that is new to them? Because you can't the problem we fall into a lot of the times is we go for, okay, let's do discovery, let's then find the problem that they have and let's show them how our software solves the problem that they have, right? If they have a known problem, they've had that known problem for 3 years and they haven't solved it, right? So you having a solution to that problem doesn't matter because there's no urgency around them solving that problem. They haven't solved it, right? And so you need to find a problem that you can solve that that is brand new because they're much more likely to go solve that problem than one they already know about.
Hmm.
And then the other thing that you have to really figure out, where are you differentiated? Not just a little bit, but massively differentiated from everybody else. Because you need to reframe them and show them this problem that only you can solve. Because if you don't, you can do this really great job of educating the entire industry that they need to go reach folks, right? In this case. But if everybody else has an app and all these other ways to reach, you just got everyone to go look at everybody else. And if there's somebody that that looks like you and does the same thing, okay, they're going to go buy from that person, right?
Hmm.
This is why we can't use reach anymore, because the entire industry has caught up with us, right? And so we're already on to the next thing, which is combating the commoditization of care and stuff. I won't go into all of it. I can talk about this all day, but
Right. So you found product market fit. You found the story track that worked in selling at scale
yep,
into veterinarians. And that's around 2016, and that's when we funded you at Canal Partners.
yep.
And then so to talk about those uses of capitals, and that was your Series A, and then kind of what were some of the kind of the challenges and and the key learnings between scaling from 3 to 5 to 10 and taking on those additional rounds of capital, specifically around market size and wallet share. And how did you think about that?
Yeah. So it's interesting because for us it was actually less about wallet share and market size and more like we had figured out how to sell it, right? And what we hadn't figured out was how to support it, like the full customer success side of things. Early on, you can get trapped by your own success because you've sold to a bunch of these folks. They really believe in you, and so they will be loyal, and you'll be like, oh, I have 0% churn. Like I hear this from early founders all the time, like, oh, nobody ever leaves us, right? And like, yeah, nobody leaves you yet, but they're going to leave you if you don't pay attention to it, right? And so we really use those funds to build out customer success. We read the customer success book by Nick Mehta, the CEO of Gainsight, right? We were like true believers of that. We built that out. Where we struggled was building out that sales organization. So we had figured out how to sell it. right? The narrative and all of those things. We hadn't figured out how do we get SDRs and what do we do with the SDRs and how do we get account executives that can actually sell this way, especially at the price points that we're able to hire them on, right? We didn't have a ton of money yet, and so we had to make that money go far. And then up until that point, we had like 3 total engineers. Like Aaron still hadn't come back, and it was like Ken and 2 other engineers, I think. And so we had to start building out a little bit more of that team, so that we could build more of this product. Um, and so a lot of the learnings was around the people management side and just scaling the headcount of a business and that type of stuff
And how'd you learn how to do that?
by failing a lot.
Failing a lot.
Like I mean really, like we had a lot of turnover, especially building a sales team, like an SDR team. One of the biggest lessons I learned was if you're going to build an SDR team, just understand the cultural impact it's going to have, right? So for a long time, 50% of the employees were in the SDR team, and that's high turnover, right? You're hiring
By
people.
nature of the job.
Yeah, yeah, and you're firing people 3 weeks, sometimes 3 days after you hired them because you just realize like, oh man, this is just really bad, and so it's a very difficult culture to manage, and then they're sitting right next to engineers and everybody else, and they're seeing this turnover and they're getting worried, and it can really infect the company. Yeah, and so fortunately, I had 4 team members that started as SDRs and ended up being directors in the company. 3 of which are still with the company. One kind of part time, and another one who just recently left to go on to bigger and better things. Um, uh, but it was those 4 folks that really helped like build all this infrastructure, and we kind of learned. Man, they were super early career folks, and so kind of learned together. Yeah, through all those failures and just trying to be as smart as we could.
So, what were some of the things you did to kind of harness culture with scaling an organization?
Yeah. So first and foremost, I'm super lucky that my wife is strategic HR, worked for a bunch of big companies, and is just super awesome in what she does. So she's always been my secret weapon, kind of in the background. And you know, Ken and I, when we first started it, like we're not naturally like culture people, right? But we knew this was going to be really important, right? We knew Zappos culture was awesome, and we knew that we had to build something, and so we were very intentional early on to say like, okay, these are our values, and we're really going to think about it, um, and we're going to hire for it, and all of that. Looking back, it's the people that we hired, especially those 4 that went on to help build the business. Um, the You're never going to be able to just like force the culture as a CEO or as a founder group or whatever. You're going to have to hire folks that are like-minded in for us, like vulnerability, uh, you know work hard, but but also take time for yourself, work life integration, you know um like kindness and joy, and some of those things. And and we just really focused on the hiring process. We used the who methodology approach, the GH smart method, and we're really serious about hiring, especially as we started to fail a bunch in this. We got more and more focused to like stop listening uh, to our gut and really look at what the data is showing us during the hiring, and then
What is
those
the what is
people.
what is the who process?
So it's a lot of times you would just use it for executives, and so we do kind of like a pared down approach for a lot of the others, but it's basically more scientific in nature. Like you ask the same questions, right, to every single candidate, and then you have multiple people in the process, but you give them like focus topics so that the candidate isn't answering the same questions from, 7 different people. And then you basically have this longer who process where you go through their experience and you just ask them to say 5 questions at every single job they've been at. And then you do the like 5 whys, right? You do the deeper question when something that they talk about comes up. And then what's really important is that before all of that, you have a scorecard that is, okay, these are the attributes that I'm looking for. These are the cultural values that we're going to interview around. These are the outcomes that we want to see from this position. And then it's a little bit of an art form to get good at it, and we train all of our people in it. But um, and then you like put those puzzle pieces together as you're interviewing, and then you all get together at the end, not having talked yet, and basically say like thumbs up, thumbs down, right? And this is why. And so it's a lot of data backed, and so it'll take away some of those like gut decisions that you make in the hiring process.
Right. 'Cause I like them because they're like me in some kind of aspect.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Um, so tell me, you're now at this incredible scale, right? You've got, a product that is the market leading product. What do you see like is the next kind of genesis for Pet Desk?
Yeah, so now we haven't really like publicly announced it and everything, but we've raised like a larger couple of rounds and are going to do some bigger things. We see the industry becoming really focused on an all-in-one solution, and so we're bringing together, an all-in-one solution, but where each company is like the best breed of whatever they do. Um, and so on the SaaS side of things, we're gonna that's where we're gonna offer, I think, like the best overall solution, not just the patient engagement that we do at PetDesk, but everything, to your wallet share. Like we can capture all of the wallet share at a vet clinic in the future. But it's still a smaller market, and so we've always known that there's going to have to be a consumer side of this, right? The pet parents are going to have to play in this, and because we're focused on pet health outcomes, um, that it has to be the pet care providers and the pet parents working together around the pet's health. And so what we've started to do last year, it's now really getting underway this year, but is essentially putting all of these pet health decisions that you make as a pet parent into the app right next to your veterinarian, and then we help you make those decisions and then go and purchase those subscriptions, right? So whether that's getting financing, a monthly insurance coverage, um, getting the monthly preventatives that you give them, the drugs that you give them every single month. Food is going to be up there. Wellness plans, grooming, we're going to move back into grooming and boarding and all of that. um, and this is going to be the other side of what we do as a business is sort of this consumer recurring revenue stream around pet health. um, Ultimately we want to gather all of the data around pet health so that we can roll that back to the industry and have 30-year-old dogs and 40-year-old cats by 2050.
Nice. I
That's
like
the
it.
ultimate goal.
I like it.
Yeah.
So, how do you balance? This is my last question, but you talk so much about really intense strategic planning with your leadership team.
Hmm.
How do you balance the time allocation of strategy and planning towards execution?
Yeah, that's a
And
great question. um Yeah, we've gone through a couple different seasons over the years of that, right? I think there was a time, maybe like 3 years ago, pre-pandemic, when we did too much strategic planning and tried to really architect everything. I think we really got it right for this year, and I think this is such a good question, but it's also a really hard question to answer. Um, I think what happened this year and why we kind of like honed into this good middle ground was we we didn't spend a ton of time of strategically understanding like what are the three OKRs that we have, like, and debating it and coming up with a bunch of ideas. We knew like, okay, these are the three OKRs. Could Are there maybe some other things that we could put in and we can debate about? Yes, but like we've got to grow our SaaS revenue, we've got to grow our pet parent revenue, and we're shifting from a, growth with no profitability to a profitable growth. Like, these are the three things. Like,
Mhm.
let's not spend any more time arguing about that. Um, and these are the three things. Okay, now how do we go execute on this? Um, and then having, I think a lot of it comes down to your leaders. If your leaders are, close to the ground and understanding what it takes to execute on a day by day basis today, then, as they go into strategic planning, they're going to already lean a little bit more towards the tactical execution. And I think it's almost, at least for SaaS and at least in our space and how I've seen things, it's almost always better to be a little bit more tactical than strategic. Right. And this is, sales and marketing in the beginning, we could have come up with all this crazy marketing stuff, and been a little bit more strategic about how we went to partners and did everything. We didn't. We just hired a bunch of SDRs and just started
Sold.
calling,
Yeah.
and it worked, and it worked better than anybody else in the space that does what we do. Um, and so that's where I would say, like, I'd always, when we shifted that bias from a bias for action and execution and went a little bit more strategic, that's when we got in trouble.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, what is your favorite book
Oh,
besides, I mean, business book?
business book. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. I had like
Yeah.
10 science
Like
fiction books
not the
that I,
Dragons of Pern or
yeah, I haven't read that one actually.
you haven't read Pern?
No,
Oh,
no.
they're big.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
Um, uh, yeah. So, I mean, it's definitely Challenger Sale. It's a tie. Challenger Sale, customer success, and, uh, 50, what's the 50 visionary companies one? Built to Last.
Built to Last. Yeah, that's a
My
great one.
mom gave me, Built to Last is probably my favorite. My mom gave me Built to Last, like when I was right out of school or something. And that book is just really great. If you're thinking about how you're going to build a company and build a company that's going to last 50 years or 100 years, um, some of it now is probably a little bit out of date, but I think some of the core concepts in there are probably timeless. And yeah, it's just, and it's a fun read as well. And now it's kind of like ancient histories, some of the
Mhm.
stuff, I guess. Uh, so
What companies out there right now, tech companies, do you have a crush on?
man, I got this question before in this other one, and um, I don't know, and maybe I need to like pay more attention to the business world. This is I don't really follow other tech companies, right?
Gotcha.
And I mean, I think part of it is I have, two small kids. I like playing video games. I like doing other things, and
Right, exactly.
um, uh, yeah. So I don't have a good answer for this one.
All right. You own any stocks right now?
Yes, I finally got in. Which, and I told Ken, I was like, Ken, I'm actually getting in the stock market, so you should short the entire market. And it was right before this fall. So
Perfect. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
good. Good.
If you're ever wondering if the stock market's gonna drop 5%, just call me and ask me if I just made a stock purchase, and then it
Time
will.
your bets.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Which is why I didn't, I didn't put all the money in. But I know myself really well, and used to did some trading in my 20s and stuff. And I bought the VOO, the DIA, and the QQQ.
There you go.
So index funds, and I'm not going to try to pick stocks because I'll get into it, and I play no limit hold'em too, right? And I want to play like I'll become a day trader before I know it,
Right, exactly.
right? And I like talked to some money managers, and I was like, okay, maybe I just take this out of my hands and give it to them. But I was like, why give them 1% when
No,
the index fund is going to beat them anyway? And so,
exactly.
just put it in the index fund and keep some money back for the next 10 or 20% drop, and then put some more in, and then just try to not pay attention after
That's
that.
it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the
Yeah.
goal.
Yeah.
Taylor, thank you so much for coming on. It was really great to have you. Hopefully, we'll get you again on sometime soon.
Yes.
Um, Everybody, that is Taylor Cavanah from PetDesk, founder and CEO. Taylor is intersects the world of founder and operator. Not many people can do both very well, and Taylor is my archetype for the perfect CEO. So really super happy that you're on, man, and
Thank you, David.
glad to still know you and keep kicking butt.
Thank you. And thank you for this. It was a lot of fun. Thanks,
All right,
y'all.
man. Bye.
Take care.